Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you here today with an article from the Federalist dated January 6th, and this title is quite appropriate for that day. It says, here are the top 10 lies of Liz Cheney and the January 6th committee. I'm surprised there's only 10, but let's get into this and just see how much BS they peddled at you. So it says, a look at the top 10 lies of Liz Cheney and the January 6th committee 4 years after the Capitol demonstrations, which is a much better thing to call it than an insurrection because it literally does not fit the definition of the word insurrection. Clear my throat. Let's get started. It says, disgraced ex-Wyoming Representative Liz Cheney was awarded one of the highest civilian honors last week after House Republicans referred the vice chair of the since-disbanded Select Committee on January 6th to the Justice Department for criminal charges. On Thursday, President Joe Biden, thankfully he will be out of office very shortly, presented Cheney with the Presidential Medal of Freedom along with Representative Benny Thompson, Democrat of Mississippi, who chaired the Democrat Soviet-style Inquisition on the Capitol riot for their work on running the probe. And that just kind of devalues the Presidential Medal of Freedom, doesn't it, that they gave it to Liz Cheney. And Benny Thompson's the guy who thought Guam was going to tip over into the ocean. And if you think I'm lying about that, go look that up. It's pretty stupid. In December, however, the House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight, led by Representative Barry Loudermilk, Republican of Georgia, released a nearly 130-page review of the January 6th committee's work, concluding Cheney should face a criminal investigation for witness tampering. I mean, if she did something wrong, which I think we're all kind of convinced that she did, then yes, she should be referred for criminal prosecution. Evidence uncovered by the subcommittee revealed that former Congresswoman Liz Cheney tampered with at least one witness, Cassidy Hutchinson, by secretly communicating with Hutchinson without Hutchinson's attorney's knowledge, the report said. Cheney had coordinated to circumvent Hutchinson's attorney even as the vice chair of the January 6th panel, threatened legal action against anyone who attempted to influence witness testimony. The textbook case of projection was just one in a series of episodes wherein House investigators, deputized by then-Speaker Nancy Pelosi, concealed truth surrounding the riot on January 6th. And if you don't know or remember who Cassidy Hutchinson was, she was the chick that said that Trump tried to commandeer the presidential limo or whatever, and basically everybody involved in that was that this is something that never happened. And then she wrote a book about it, and it was it was all just a bunch of BS. So, yeah, just kind of shows you where they're starting. So let's start with number one here. It says January 6th was an insurrection, and I like how they put it in scare quotes because that's what it should be in. And it says Democrats on the January 6th panel and beyond deployed the term insurrection to characterize the 2 hours of violence at the Capitol likely they collectively developed Tourette's as a... wow, that's a weird... Wait, hold on. I said that sentence kind of funny. They collect. Okay, I missed a word. That's my problem. So we're going to do that again. It says, so they deployed the term insurrection to characterize the 2 hours of violence at the Capitol like they collectively developed Tourette's as a nasty side effect of Trump derangement syndrome. So it's like this fake disease, Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, fake is in a sense it's not an actual clinically diagnosed medical condition. Something that we on the right like to apply to people who just are nuts about Donald Trump. But it'd be funny, they actually develop a real physical condition based on a fake disease. That would just be like chef's kiss. Anyway, it says, if what happened at the Capitol, however, were actually an attempted insurrection, then why weren't any of the January 6th defendants ever charged and convicted of insurrection? Well, yeah, that would make sense. If it was, then wouldn't somebody have been charged with that? And the answer is, yeah, that would have happened. Because the term was used as nothing but a charged political phrase to frame Trump and his supporters as existential threats to democracy itself. That is correct. And it's like the Trump trial in New York where the judge convicted Trump of nothing, but now the left gets to call him a convicted felon. So it's they got their talking point. That's basically what it was. It's just a talking point, even though Trump didn't do the things that they said he did. And they had to change charges around, whatever. I mean, you get my point. Let's move on. It says, number two is democracy almost died. It says, in her post-congressional memoir published in 2023, Cheney solemnly wrote, we almost lost our republic that day. No, we didn't. Referencing the demonstrations on January 6, 2021. At a public hearing in 2022, Chairman Thompson similarly said, our system nearly failed and our democratic foundation was almost destroyed. Again, no, we did not. It did not fail at all. It says, except such hyperbolic claims never had any merit. Lawmakers were promptly escorted to secure locations after security at the Capitol was compromised, and Congress was able to reconvene just hours after. The continuity of government was never jeopardized, despite what the January 6th committee convinced themselves and their supporters to believe. Yep, and there's people out there who still believe it. And here's one of the biggest ones where they keep saying that Trump incited the insurrection, as is number 3 here, which is just, I don't think inciting an insurrection is protest peacefully and patriotically. That doesn't sound like inciting, anything to me. It says the January 6th committee concluded its investigation with criminal referrals for President Trump having incited, assisted, or aided and comforted an insurrection. The recommendation for criminal charges rests on the conspiracy peddled by the January 6th committee that because Trump spoke at the White House on the day of the riot, he must have inspired his supporters to take over the Capitol during the joint session of Congress, which is, a hell of a leap in logic. But okay. So, an honest examination of the transcript from Trump's ellipse speech, however, shows the president explicitly demanded that his supporters protest peacefully and patriotically, as I was saying. As the mob gathered at the Capitol, meanwhile, had already breached the first barriers before the president had even finished speaking. Yeah, so a little bit of, it's sad when, or I should say it's funny when time proves you wrong. Just the existence of time itself and things happening at different periods of time. Number 4, Trump was enthusiastic about the violence. President Trump, the January 6th committee said, was not just apathetic about the violence, but was enthusiastic, according to testimony from the panel's star witness, former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson. Trump, Hutchinson said in her public testimony, approved of demonstrators who were demanding to hang the vice president. But House investigators who reviewed the January 6th committee's charges found no evidence that President Trump agreed with rioters chanting "Hang Mike Pence." So it says number 5. It says Trump tried to hijack the limousine to riot at the Capitol himself. And this is what I was saying about Cassidy Hutchinson here. So I'm glad to see the article came around to it. And I hadn't read this beforehand. I just saw the headline and was like, I figured I'll talk about this. So it says, one of Hutchinson's most hysterical claims is that President Trump assaulted Secret Service personnel to take over a government vehicle and drive himself to the Capitol where he could join the rioters. Hutchinson, however, was immediately discredited by her own sources following her public appearance and was further undermined in the nearly 130-page review of the January 6th committee's conduct last month. In fact, a new transcript of the Secret Service driver kept under seal by Cheney's team directly contradicted Hutchinson's tale. It says, I did not see him reach. He never grabbed the steering wheel, the driver told investigators in the January 6th panel. I didn't see him, lunge to try to get in front of the seat at all. So there you go. That's what Cassidy Hutchinson said. She lied and got caught immediately. Number 6, Trump dismissed need for National Guard. In her memoir, Cheney characterized Trump as negligent in his role to deploy the National Guard ahead of electoral certification. To be clear, the issue was not that the Secret Service failed to brief those up the chain at the White House about the threat, Cheney wrote. It appeared to the committee that this information was being conveyed up the chain, including directly to Mark Meadows and President Trump. It says, with the weight of the intelligence we receive via Homeland Security, it is exceptionally difficult to believe that anyone in the White House with access to this information could have failed to recognize this obvious menace, she wrote. Except Trump was adamant about local and congressional officials preparing for mass demonstrations by demanding preemptive deployment of 10,000 troops from the National Guard. Cheney's committee just covered up Trump's plea by concealing another transcript from a witness lawmakers tried to discredit after Pelosi refused to accept federal reinforcements multiple times in the days leading up to the riot. So Nancy Pelosi has something to answer for here, doesn't she? It says 7 demonstrations were mostly violent. His former Fox News host Tucker Carlson flipped the January 6th committee's narrative of an excessively violent demonstration on its head when he aired additional footage from the Capitol released to his team by then House Speaker Kevin McCarthy 2 years ago. It says, these are the pictures you've seen of January 6th, Carlson said on his now defunct primetime program. But it turns out there's quite a bit of video you haven't seen, and that video tells a very different story about what happened on January 6th. Says Carlson's producers reviewed more than 40,000 hours of security footage kept under seal by House Democrats, revealing a far different demonstration at the Capitol than the few scenes exploited by the January 6th committee to depict what they claimed was an eruption of domestic terrorism. Says Senator Mike Lee, Republican of Utah, mocked the hysteria from the committee when Cheney reposted clips of the riot featuring the most turbulent scenes in response to Carlson's program. And here's the embedded tweet, but we'll read it from the actual article itself up here. It says, Liz, we've seen the footage like that a million times. You made sure we saw that and nothing else, Lee wrote on X. It's the other stuff, what you deliberately hid from us, that we find so upsetting. And oh yeah, here's one of the other biggest lies about it, is that a Capitol police officer was killed in the riot. And this is still perpetuating today. There were no officers killed in the riot. Simple as that. The only person killed was a woman named Ashley Babbitt. Okay, and I see her name down there, so they're obviously going to say that. So let's see what this says here. It says, the New York Times quietly corrected a story blaming Capitol rioters for the death of deceased officer Brian Sicknick, but members of the January 6th committee never have. In fact, during a hearing months after a report from the D.C. Medical Examiner's Office concluded Officer Sicknick died of natural causes, then Representative Elaine Loria claimed he succumbed to his injuries from the riot the night of January 7th. says the only two people to die directly from the riot were female Trump supporters Ashley Babbitt, who was shot by a Capitol Police officer promoted 2 years after the riot, and Roseanne Boyland, who was trampled. I did not know that. And okay, sorry about that. It says footage aired by Carlson on the January 6th tape shows Sicknick, the officer allegedly bludgeoned by a fire extinguisher, vigorously walking around the Capitol following the hit. So obviously was not killed. It says number 9, Loudermilk gave rioters reconnaissance tours. In the summer of 2022, House Democrats accused Representative Loudermilk of giving reconnaissance tours ahead of the attack on the Capitol after viewing security footage of the Georgia lawmaker escorting constituents around the building. The FBI totally cleared them, Loudermilk told Carlson when the network host aired the January 6 tapes. The committee knew this before they actually made their accusations against me. Yeah, that seems a little defamatory, and I wonder if he can actually sue them over that. So number 10 says the January 6th committee was legitimate, and no, it was not. Says then Speaker Pelosi violated House rules when she banned minority representation on her select committee to investigate January 6th. The unprecedented move to bar Republican lawmakers from the committee meant Cheney had misled witnesses and federal agencies about the panel's legitimate bipartisanship. Because House rules dictate that ranking committee members must be appointed by the minority party, Cheney, who was appointed by the Democrat Speaker at the time, served as the panel's vice chair. Says the Select Committee was ostensibly established to investigate and report upon the objective facts and causes relating to the preparedness and response of the United States Capitol Police and other federal, state, and local law enforcement in the course of the Capitol riot as outlined by the committee's establishing resolution. Yet Pelosi's commission instead targeted private citizens who exercise their constitutional right of free assembly. The legitimacy of the committee's actions has always remained in question, since Congress is not one of the branches of government tasked with investigating alleged crimes of private citizens. And that is the article. So, it's going all the way back to the top here. So, are there any additional lies that, if you could add it to this article, that you would? Anything additional? That's Benny Thompson right there with Liz Cheney and, of course, with Jake Tapper, propagandist extraordinaire on CNN. It was 1 year later, so this was in 2022 that they had this. But, yeah, you can see they're using the loaded language here as well. But, of course, they are because it's CNN, and that's what they do. So, yeah, if you want to add anything to this, please comment below. But anyways, comment what you thought about the video. Please like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.